Hi guys, okay, very short video hopefully about spadroons. This is a spadroon, okay, this is a French Napoleonic example. What is a spadroon? In short, a spadroon is halfway between a small sword, that is the gentleman's duelling sword of the 18th century, and a backsword or broadsword. Okay, so why did they come about? Well, because in the 18th century officers were gentlemen, and gentlemen carried small swords, and so on the battlefield they wanted to carry a sword that looked like a gentleman's small sword, hence the design of the hilt, with a fairly simple knuckle bow, small cross guard, and a shell guard, and a little round pommel on the end. However, the blades, they sort of militarised the blades in a sense, so you have a single-edged cutting blade that is supposedly better for parrying bayonets or parrying cavalry swords, and gives you the ability to cut and thrust. The problem with a spadroon is that it is bad at cutting in general and bad at thrusting. So it is not as good at thrusting as a small sword and nowhere near as good at cutting as a sabre or a broadsword. So what they made was a weapon that was essentially a bit rubbish, and I'm not a fan of spadroons, as you may be starting to gather. And in actual fact, lots of officers in the Napoleonic Wars felt the same as me, and by about 1800 it was very common for officers in regiments that saw a lot of action to get sabres, and that's ultimately why the sabre became the standard regulation sidearm of British officers in the British Army. And just to illustrate the fact that it's very, very light in the blade, it's not going to be able to give any force behind a cut. You could do a push cut or a draw cut, but you don't really want to rely on those in combat, not if that's your only option. And for a thrust, that's how flexible it is. It's too flexible to be a good thrusting weapon. If it meets a resistive jacket or cloak or something, it's just not going to get through. And they don't generally, this has actually lost its point slightly, but they don't generally have very acute points either. So essentially spadroons look quite pretty, not very good for using. They feel quite nice in the hand and they're good for poking the fire with, and that's about it in my view. Feel free to disagree. Cheers.